CMON, cool mini or not. For years, that name has been a gold standard in the world of board games. Known for massive crowdfunding campaigns, mountain of miniatures, and blockbuster hits like Zombicide and Blood Rage, CMON rode a wave of success that few other publishers could match. But in 2025, the story looks very different. Instead of record-breaking Kickstarters, CMON is now issuing profit warnings, pausing development, and scrambling to reassure both investors and backers they will survive. So what happened? How did one of the giants of the tabletop space run into such turbulent financial waters? In this video, we're going to take a deep dive into CMON's financial challenges, where they came from, what's happening right now, and what the future might hold.
All that I got will never stop. I give it all. Straight to the top, will never stop. I give it all. All that I have, I let it be. Cause nobody's better than me. What do you see? Give it all.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise.
To understand CMON's present, we first need to look at their past. CMON began in 2001 as Cool Mini or Not, a website where fans started painting miniatures. Over the next decade, it evolved into a publisher, and in 2012, they hit the jackpot with Zombicide. The Kickstarter for Zombicide raised nearly $800,000, an astronomical figure at the time, and it set the tone for CMON's entire strategy. Big box games, crammed with tons of miniatures, flashy stretch goals, and exclusive content that drove fear out of missing out. That formula worked. Campaign after campaign, CMON broke records. Blood Rage in 2015, Rising Sun 2018, Cthulhu May Die, all multi-million-dollar hits. By 2023, CMON had run close to 60 crowdfunding campaigns, raising more than $100 million in pledges. In 2016, CMON went public on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. For investors, this signaled growth and legitimacy. For fans, it looked like the company had cemented itself as one of the top names in tabletop publishing. But that reliance on crowdfunding was both their greatest strength and their greatest weakness. While sales soared, the cracks were already forming. CMON's model relied heavily on Kickstarter cash to fund projects, often running new campaigns while older ones were still being manufactured or delivered. That meant cash from one campaign often had to help cover the costs from previous ones. When production costs were stable, the cycle worked really well. But by 2018 and 2019, U.S. tariffs on goods manufactured in China began to bite. CMON, like most publishers, relied heavily on Chinese manufacturing for miniatures. Suddenly, margins began to shrink. Then came COVID-19. The pandemic triggered shipping crisis, factory delays, and skyrocketing freight costs. CMON's big boxes of plastic, which were once their biggest selling point, now became their heaviest liability. Shipping a pallet of games cost several times more than before, erasing almost all of their profits. Even after the pandemic, inflation and higher costs of living left consumers with less money to spend on $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $7,000, $8,000 Kickstarter campaigns. By 2024, CMON's financial reports showed real trouble ahead. Now let's take a closer look at CMON's financial trajectory, because numbers don't lie, and the data paints a pretty stark picture. In its 2024 financial snapshot, originally CMON's March 2025 profit warning estimated losses for 2024 at 1.4 and 2.1 million US dollars. Yet, when the annual report finally arrived, delayed by an understaffed financial department, 2024's audited loss was worse. $3 million USD against revenues of $37.35 million, which was down significantly from its 2023 highs of $45 million. That loss nearly wiped out CMON's modest profits from 2021 through 2023. Combined, profits that had gradually rebounded in the post-pandemic period. But the situation deteriorated even more sharply in 2025. In August, CMON issued a second profit warning, projected losses of $6 to $8 million for just the first half of 2025. To put that into perspective, it eclipsed CMON's worst ever annual loss in 2002 during the pandemic by about $5 million. It's nearly 3 times the cumulative profit realized by the company over the prior 10 years, and it dwarfs the entire audited loss of 2024. Let's trace CMON's profit and losses over the years for context. If we go back, we can see back in 2020, the COVID years, as we can call them, they had $4.9 million of losses, which was not to be unexpected with everything going on with tariffs and shipping. But in 2021, as the board game industry really started to rebound in a new surge of excitement and anticipation, they showed about $500,000 of profit. In 2022, they increased it slightly by about $500,000 of profit. In 23, you can see they eked up even further, getting ever so close to $1 million of profit. And then in 2024, that's when everything started to show its cracks. In 2024, they had to report $3 million of losses. And then again, in the first half of 2025, they now are reporting between $6 and $8 million of losses. This chart illustrates how CMON plunged from modest profitability in the early 2020s into significant sustained losses, with 2025's first half being the most financially devastating stretch yet. This financial downturn triggered several critical problems, like delays in reporting, which triggered a temporary stock freeze on the Hong Kong exchange, a scramble to fulfill 8 undelivered campaigns tied to about $18 million in pledges, plus 7 pre-order games. Urgent liquidity needs fueled the sale of high-value IPs, including Zombicide, Blood Rage, and Rising Sun, reducing all of their long-term earning potential. And a wave of executive departures, including the COO, Chief Operating Officer, the Chief Financial Officer, and company secretary, signaling internal instability. To slow the bleeding, CMON made drastic moves. In April 2025, the company announced it was halting all new game development and crowdfunding campaigns. No new projects, no flashy Kickstarters, no big new miniature games. Instead, they would only focus on fulfilling the projects they already had funded. Reports also confirmed layoffs across creative and development teams, a clear sign of shrinking operations. At the same time, CMON sold off several of its intellectual properties, like Zombicide to Asmodee, and the Lang trilogy, which was Blood Rage, Rising Sun, and Ankh, and the entire Arcadia Quest series to Tabletop Tycoon. These critical franchises that once had been central to its success. This brought in immediate cash, but also meant CMON was giving up on revenue streams of the future. In other words, survival first, growth later. For fans and backers, the news hit hard. CMON still has around 11 outstanding campaigns representing more than $26 million in pledges. That's thousands of backers waiting for games, some whom have pledged hundreds or even thousands of dollars. I would know, I've been a part of those before. I'm looking at you, Mythic Games. Delays are very common in crowdfunding, as we all undoubtedly know. But CMON's financial warning sparked real fear. On forums and Reddit, backers voiced concern that if CMON collapses, their money and their games will be gone forever. Some backers even have accused CMON of running a risky financial model, using new campaigns and the money generated from them to prop up their old obligations. Of course, others have criticized the reliance on massive plastic-stuffed exclusives that were expensive to produce and ship. What once looked like a dream machine, endless minis, endless campaigns, tons of boxes galore, and huge IPs, well, it was starting to resemble a house of cards. CMON's struggles highlighted a bigger issue in the hobby: the sustainability of crowdfunding. For years, companies relied on the FOMO-driven Kickstarter model, promising huge amounts of content and exclusives. But, especially this year in 2025, as costs have rose and consumer enthusiasm has cooled a little bit, that model has become relatively fragile. The tabletop industry has seen a surge of competition, with literally thousands of new games being released every single year. At the same time, retail and secondhand markets are flooded, reducing the urgency for backers to pledge hundreds up front. CMON, once the master of this system, found itself caught in its own cycle of overextension. So what's next for CMON? The company says its top priority is to fulfill existing campaigns. In an effort to provide as much transparency as possible, they have recently released a chart showing the roadmap of where every one of their existing campaigns currently sits. If they can deliver those 11 projects, they could restore some trust, maybe. They've also promised more financial transparency, with an independent audit that's expected to be completed by the end of August 2025. CMON will likely need to restructure its business model. That could mean fewer campaigns, smaller projects, and a shift away from overproduced miniatures, which we've already kind of seen with many of the other companies, especially at this year's Gen Con and Origins, where we've seen a lot more card games that have avoided a lot of the tariffs by being printed overseas. They may also have to seek outside investors or partnership to stabilize operations, similar to selling off assets like they did with Tabletop Tycoon. What's clear is that CMON is at a crossroads. Either they adopt and rebuild, or they risk becoming a cautionary tale about the dangers of leaning too heavily on crowdfunding. CMON's story is a fascinating one, which is why I wanted to make sure I did this video. It's a company that went from a hobbyist website to a Kickstarter juggernaut to a company that's now fighting for its survival and future. For fans, for backers, and for the entire industry, the next year will be critical. So, in the comments, what do you think? Can CMON recover, reestablish itself as a leader in the tabletop publishing space? Or is this the beginning of the end? Let us know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to subscribe, because we are working so diligently trying to hit that 1,000 subscribers, and we're getting really close with all of your support. And without that, we are literally nothing. So this is where we're going to wrap up our deep dive on CMON. And just remember, you don't need the newest of new. There's so many unloved games that are just waiting for you to pick them up in the secondhand space. There's so many amazing games that have already been published and delivered to your friendly local game store that just want that new home. So adopt one of those games today. And most importantly, remember, the champions never stop playing. Good night, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise.